Yes, it's exactly 5 a.m. this Saturday, January 8th, 2022, on the East Coast of the United States and in New Jersey. I just feel like I can't contain myself coming on here. Just such a strong feeling that I can't describe, that I just have to speak here. I don't know if that to me indicates something is about to happen. I'm here to go over La Palma again, and also the fact that spiritually and prophetically, I think this feeling also has to do with the nearness of Jesus' appearance to take believers. And just last night, I got pretty down and like no desire to do videos anymore, especially to go over, this volcano, just let it be, and whatever ultimately happens, I'll just keep watching, but really haven't felt like continuing with this issue here. And I was standing outside, felt like this and thinking this, and this sort of strong kind of overwhelming sense and feeling came over me unexpectedly, and what it seemed to be was that, yes, this is going to happen with La Palma. I take that to mean very soon here, and also the expectancy that Jesus is returning here now, and that was to comfort and reassure me, I think, as encouragement, and to realize, yes, these things are about to happen. These things are about to take place, even though things have seemed to go slowly, and we don't know exactly what's happening. It's pretty mysterious. And with the volcano, it's creepy, very creepy, all of this. Like some great thing is just being hidden if it's about to take place. That's how I felt here all along, really. With the last video, I said I would return to show those photos that I had taken and enhanced to show what would appear to be, I don't know if it looked like lava, but I'm not certain about this. There's been so much uncertainty and hiding of things, so I'm not going with that regardless. And I took the picture down of the last video. I'm not going to show that. I don't know if it was something with the camera that added a certain color, but anyway, it's a moot point right now. I'm not even really concerned with that. And even though there looks like hardly anything whatsoever may be happening with this volcano, I believe it's the opposite, and I'll show you a few things. Well, I'll tell you. I'm not going to show you. I'm not going to put anything on the screen. I'll be jumping around a bit in different things here as I go along. And there's a lot of spiritual aspects to all of this and what's been taking place with this volcano. Let me give you an example. I came across this a few days ago. Now, if you're familiar with volcano discovery, they've been basically the one followed by just about everyone for information about quakes and, reporting of them when they happen, the magnitude, and so on. And it says here concerning volcano discovery and the head office that the CEO is Dr. Tom Pfeiffer. Okay, and his address is Heideweg 2 D-66606, St. Wendel, Germany. Okay, maybe an accident, but whatever, it just goes along with the bizarreness of everything here. Let me mention a website. The person's name or the channel's name is Ruger for Life. Ruger, the number 4, and then life. He specializes in decoding La Palma. That's all he does. In media, magazines, music, everything, where it seems to be encoded that this is going to take place. Music. Although with all of this encoding and hidden symbolism and numbers and so on, numerology, anything that seems to be, applicable to all of this and all different things. It seems pretty obvious that when it comes to specific dates about anything happening, it just hasn't happened, and it seems like that it's not going to, according to exactly, what anyone's conclusions are or have been. Despite that, I'm not putting that down. I'm just saying that it's really hard to know what these rascals are up to, even though it's obvious they're trying to tell everyone in a secretive, covert way, in a sadistic way, to sort of announce it beforehand. Did I say numerology? I meant gematria. And, I don't concentrate on any of that. I hear it occasionally. Stuff is interesting, but it sort of leads one off in a sense, on a wild goose chase. I'm sort of, preconcerned with that to a certain point. I don't know. I mean, it's just seems to me pretty excessive. Just concentrating on that. It's pretty, it's dark, and it's exposing what's going on. But I think to a certain degree, but to sort of keep concentrating on it, even though it seems to be others' forte, still it doesn't sit right with me. So I didn't mean to get into all of that, but I just felt I should mention that. And so the question is, what's really going on with La Palma? What's the story? Is there any indication that this is going to continue and activate again? You can see the chart that I left with the last video. I changed it. You'll see the image there, and that chart, again, is the amplitude, which is just a measurement of very, very tiny quakes or tremors, which seems to mean that magma is on the move, or movement with magma, and also maybe breaking through crust, or sort of trying to break through, but in a a not very pronounced way, but yet it's still happening. Okay, so if you look at that chart, it shows a spike way up to almost 50 AU, and the chart goes all the way to 100. So it increased in one jump about 3 days ago. Suddenly, about 50% of the chart all the way up it went. Now that's been normal, fairly normal many times. This has occurred during the whole eruption from the start. When constant activity took place, and then it suddenly stopped. I believe it's almost exactly 5 weeks ago, from giant spikes with the amplitude. And I believe there was a huge sudden eruption one morning that took place, violent, very huge explosion and fierce flames. And then everything dropped off, like I said, died. Seemed like nothing. The volcano just died the next day and has remained in that state for about 5 weeks. So about 4 days ago, I'm not sure if I reported that or said this in the last few videos, that I noticed that there was a spike one day, and it started gyrating up and down like sudden activity, and you could really see it going up and down, and going higher, even though it started out and that activity was at a really very low level, but it showed something had been set off. Something was going on where this activity had begun, and it's continued, all right, since then, which is about 5 days ago. So, and then, like I say, about 3 days ago, you'll see that spike out of nowhere go up almost to 50. And it was, like I say, the days before it went all the way up to almost 20. And I thought, wow, this is showing some action. Even though it's very low, it shows something is happening, whereas nothing whatsoever seems like was happening for 5 weeks. And definitely something happened there. Something I don't know, was set off or the ball rolling here again. And then again, I was very surprised to see way down. It went way down almost to zero again. And then, like I say, that sudden spike about 3 or 4 days ago. Since then, it's still showing action on a very low level, but sort of increasing a bit by bit, going up and up. And I'm kind of expecting that maybe there's going to be another spike really any moment here. I was waiting maybe as much as I could before I did this video to refresh the information to see but they haven't even updated. This is strange too. It's just whatever it is, it's like pulling teeth to get any information, and it's lagging. That almost half the day has gone by and they haven't updated that. So I'm curious to see if another spike has taken place or not. Also, when I go to see the charts, the ones I'm looking at, they're either blanked out a lot of times, and there's just nothing, or only half the chart loads. So also they keep switching the scale of things, of the numbers and the charts themselves, which makes it even more confusing. So anyway, as I have been saying, this seems like one of the major signs that something is happening here, and maybe something, is going to start reoccurring here with what's happening. It's showing a burst of life, it seems to me. A lot of what's taken place has seemed to be unnatural occurrences, like the fact that at the beginning of this eruption, the days before that, this swarm was said to have started on 9/11, and we all know what 9/11 is. So, is that really a coincidence? And then here's my point too. Right after that, after several days, the quakes dropped down to zero. I mean, right down to nothing. And then we all know what happened after that. So, like I'm saying here, compare it to now, things have been like at zero with quakes and with the amplitude going on for like 5 weeks. So, why couldn't the same thing happen here suddenly? Suddenly this thing springs back to life. For whatever caused this to begin and whatever causing this to happen, naturally or unnaturally. And it's been found recently by scientists at the crater there, measuring, I guess, the magma, that it's very hot. It's still sitting there. Okay, 500 degrees. I heard up to 1,000 degrees. I forget centigrade or Fahrenheit, but it's very hot still. So there's still magma there, and the thermal images, although it measures the surface, is hot too, red, all red on the mountain and elsewhere. And of course, there seems to have been very, very little outgassing or gases or smoke emanating for quite a while here, weeks, although you can't tell because all the live streams are inaccurate, really. You can't tell what's actually from now or what's archived. So there's really no live streams. There may be one or two that shows a little bit, but they don't put the date, they don't put the time, nothing. So you don't know exactly what you're looking at. So basically there's no live streams coming from there exactly. So there might be a little bit of footage, like I said, but that really can't be absolutely verified, though it does look recent. And also another indicator that I mentioned is the spectrograph or spectrogram. Spectrogram is actually what it's called. And it's those moving, graphs that you see of earthquakes. You'll see different lines and different colors indicating, waves or signals indicating magma or activity going on with a certain place, certain volcanoes, which is a good way to look to see if there's going to be quakes or possibly eruption also. Now, also I mentioned that for a long, long time, the Canary Islands and La Palma moving graph, has been totally nothing, which is indicated by dark blue. In other words, you just see dark blue. There's blue. There's no lines. There's no activity. And I mentioned that, I guess a week ago, maybe longer, I started noticing that there started to be activity, very low activity, but again, it seemed to indicate something has changed, something is going on, something has become active and, set off again. Now I'm looking at it right now. I've been following it every day, like I said, for the past 10 days or so. It seems to be getting and growing steadily, though very minutely, but daily, in colors and in lines, and just seemingly growing little by little. And once more, the things I'm mentioning may seem very, very little comparatively to everything that's taken place so far with this whole episode, and historically, from, whatever it was, September 19th, that the eruption started, was said to have started. But in this case, it seems significant that something's going on, something's happening, something has started up again, and it's happened simultaneously, both these things, which I guess measure harmonic tremors, and the chart indicates, that this also, both charts that I mentioned, as these moving graphs that I'm talking about here show moment by moment changes or activity that's streaming, from left to right, moving, and according to whatever waves or whatever energy is being detected or picked up by the instruments. Now, as far as earthquakes go, there's a little bit of a flurry right here now within the past, let's say, 12 hours of around 2.0s, and they're usually downgraded or put to a lower level. So what I'm saying is there's been about 5 of them within the past 12 hours of around 2 and even more, and I've seen some that were higher than 2, I think, that were downgraded. So I'm looking at, like I say, about 5 of them, and there's another one that just said Spain, and there's been quite a few in the area of the islands, and also Spain in that whole area. So there's quite a bit of activity going on. And the depth, how deep they are of these shakes. This one, the last one, was only 4 kilometers. That's very shallow. I mean, if that means magma is moving, then it could be close to, going up through the volcano. I don't know. And then the other one was, after that was 11 kilometers, then 9 kilometers, 28 kilometers, and 11 kilometers. So one was at deeper depth in that whole range, and the others have been shallow. And I'm seeing here that within the past 2 or 3 days, there's been quite a few quakes reported here, and they've also been shallow. All right, I think one here, one is 3 kilometers, though it wasn't a very strong quake, 1.2. Well, it was probably higher because they just knock them down. Actually 1.5 it was, 2 kilometers, and so forth. Let's see here. So, I mean, that's sort of why I'm getting this feeling to come on here and do this video, because I don't know, it feels like things are lining up here. As I just said, although they've not been large quakes, especially considering the magnitude and how many there's been all along here, but 5 quakes within 12 hours, considering how inactive things have been, especially in light of the other indicators I just mentioned. Once more, it seems like something is becoming active here. It really does. Once more, the depth are very shallow. And I mean, you would think that what's required to indicate that maybe an eruption is coming is many more earthquakes and larger earthquakes. But as I had just said before, right at the start there, after that initial swarm, great many quakes for several days, then for quite a while, many days went by and it went down to zero. The quakes went down to zero. I don't know what the amplitude was. I don't have that information. But my point is, it doesn't seem to matter, really, if this holds true, in the same case here, right at this moment, that the quakes have been very low, that maybe there still will be eruption, or it indicates, there could be more activity increasing, possibly as the days go by here, or suddenly. Again, because as I said, activity had been really very, very low, dropped off like almost to nothing compared to what it was during, the very active days, which were almost all of them. And then, like I said, there were two eruptions suddenly taking everyone by surprise. I mean, massive at those low moments of complete inactivity. And once more, if my sort of intuition and sense of what I'm feeling might be happening, I would venture to expect there's going to be more quakes, more in frequency, and closer to one another, maybe even in magnitude. And then finally, here's some interesting information about quakes, about why maybe things have been not as we have expected when it seemed things should have taken place with the energy levels, the effects of certain things, which usually indicate quakes are imminent or ready to happen. And I'm going to read what this person said. This was in response to a person named Luke Holmquist, who has one of these earthquake prediction channels, and I believe it's actually called the Earthquake Prediction Center, if I got that right. Now, he's been coming on and I heard him guarantee that there would be a major earthquake in the San Francisco area, general vicinity of California, based on his calculations. Unfortunately, he's been doing that for about 8 months, and not one time has it happened, even though he seems, so definitely sure. And he says within 24 hours, and there's a 90% chance, and so forth, even more. He's been doing this for a long time, and unfortunately, every time it never happened, even though each time, he was practically guaranteeing it. And I heard him say, "I guarantee it," and he expected it within 24 hours. This was a few weeks ago. So, I mean, I'm not questioning anyone's sincerity, but here's the point, and this is a good point. And let me preface this very briefly here by saying that a couple of weeks ago, I started thinking about, why certain prognostications or forecasts involving earthquakes may not seem to happen, even though it seems so sure. Again, that certain energy or certain factors that go into the equation, which would seem to have an impact, that earthquakes are going to happen, and even in specific areas, to sort of try to point, pinpoint, when something might take place. So anyway, my thought was this: if, and it's not an if to me, but it's a fact, if earthquakes can be manipulated by certain means to produce energy to cause them. Ergo, if it's also possible to do the opposite, to deflect that energy or to stop their effects from causing earthquakes that would normally occur by, like I say, earthquake prediction, by whatever factors, whether it would be planetary alignments, solar flares, so on, or maybe even the energy produced by other quakes in other areas, even far, far away on the other side of the globe. I don't know, to somehow divert that energy also. Because when there are quakes, they send out energy from that, and the vibration of that can produce aftershocks, and there's even something called the foreshocks, which would seem to indicate a larger quake is occurring. But so those quakes send out their energy throughout the earth and throughout the plate lines traveling, which, produces quakes way in different areas, just like it sort of travels a path, and then it unloads its energy, and the pressure, builds, and there's a quake somewhere far, far away from that, and it sort of keeps perpetuating itself, and that energy sends more energy, and so on. So this person was addressing this to him, why, when certain things are expected to happen, and all the calculations and charts and so forth seem to line up that it's going to, and nothing takes place. He said, Luke, you and me and several others are dumbfounded about what happened. Where is the big California energy? When I have a forecast going and a large magnitude 7 plus quake strikes, I often pause or cancel any forecasts I have running. What I have observed is the whole planet will take a step or two down, and after 3 to 5 days, seismic energy picks back up. But the energy that we had been looking for has passed or moved on. It is my idea that the waves from those larger quakes roll through and around the planet, will disrupt the other waves in motion. This is most certainly a hypothesis and needs further study, but logically it makes sense for the time being. So this person is saying, and it sounds, like a good idea, that if there are large quakes, it'll sort of run into and might interfere or divert it, other energy that's expected to cause earthquakes in a certain area. It sort of just deflects it like a pinball machine, bangs it all around in different ways. So I think this kind of idea is accurate, although I know very little about quakes and all of this, but it makes sense. It really does. I was just reading before, looking at the different layers of the earth, the core, outer core, mantle, and so forth, crust. And right above the surface, or the crust of the earth, there's the asthenosphere, I think it's called, which is a certain strata or layer. And then I think it's the lithosphere. And so the lithosphere seems to maybe act like a shock absorber to waves of energy. So I don't know. What I'm trying to say is, it seems like there's things and factors and maybe reasons why energy is blocked or redirected or stopped altogether or neutralized. Or like maybe if you have two waves like of water heading toward each other and colliding, it would seem to sort of neutralize it and sort of flatten it out so that, it would equalize, so that it wouldn't be, a great wave there. It would sort of stop and cancel out each other, that kind of idea. Things like with the magnetosphere, which protects the Earth from solar radiation and that, which heats the earth, heats the mantle, expands magma to go up and cause earthquakes and volcanoes, etc. So that has a diminishing effect on the solar radiation and bombardment if there's a solar flare. And, all kinds of factors. How weak is the Earth's shield? The magnetic, shifting, how that could change things. A lot of things, ideas. Maybe like the movement of the plates, which sort of releases energy at different, areas, different points, and that sort of releases the energy. But I guess also it builds it up also. Don't ask me. I guess it's depends on how pent up it is and how much it's depressurized, and quakes happen along the way, the energy is released. If it's not, then it'll keep traveling and grow more and more pressure heading downstream to wherever it's heading on the fault lines, and probably, make bigger quakes the longer the delay. I think that's pretty much the story. I guess quickly another idea that came to me as an example would be if you're out on the water and there's boats, going about, moving around from different directions, and they produce waves, and wherever you are, or what you see waves going in all directions. Some might make the waves larger if they're parallel, or it might interfere and go against that wave and lessen it, or change its direction. Or I guess if there's no other boats around, then the wave it makes will have no interference, and it will, come towards a certain spot as predicted in a certain height. And also we absolutely know, because it's a fact and there's patents on it, and it's been demonstrated that there's certain technology through ELF and other types of energy waves, TESLA, or C and then E and then RN, those type of things, or Sun Simi. And again, I mentioned Ruger for Life. If you want to learn about that, the fact of what they are and what they do, and diabolicalness of such things, go and listen to his latest videos. He did a whole series, 3 of them, explaining all of that. And again, he deals with La Palma, and this could very well, and I believe absolutely has been involved in what's been happening there and continues to be. And my other point in my conclusion about all of this with predicting quakes or volcanoes is that it's not, to me, it's not just one thing. It's not just one means or one thing that can be predicted to affect earthquakes. To me, it's absolutely not, though it can. But again, it depends upon these other factors, I believe, that I just mentioned, that could interfere with that. And that seems to be why the forecasts could be accurate, the models can be accurate, but it doesn't produce the results, or not at that time, because of these other possible reasons. I think one of the really overlooked reason could be planetary objects a system close to the Earth, which is also having a direct impact, and its energy affecting and interfering with these things. So there's a lot of things going on, maybe even man-made things, like I said, can stop those waves. If they could produce them, then maybe the means has been developed to do the opposite, to stop waves from affecting certain things, okay? Just like with weather, all right? There's all kinds of crazy, unnatural radar signatures and patterns. I have tons of photos of that. It's totally unnatural, and we see all the horrifying, graphic, destructive weather that's been taking place. Really crazy things all along here too. If you're not aware of this, I think it was Lanzarote, or Lanzarote, however you pronounce it, Lanzarote. That's one of the Canary Islands all the way to the east. About a couple of weeks ago, they had a sudden, unexpected, violent storm. I forget which coast it was on, maybe the northwest. And there were 100 mile per hour winds, 100 miles an hour, which is hurricane force, maybe even level 2. There was a break off and a landslide of the ground on the coast, and it looked a lot like you would see a tsunami or a tidal wave, but not technically, but it looked like something stirred the waters up. And though they're saying, well, it was just because of the wind, well, maybe something stirred the wind up too. But I saw the footage. It looked a lot like almost wave after wave, like a surge of waves that kept going farther, and it went inland, and it flooded a lot of things, a lot of places, on a lot of roads. And this happened in the Canary Islands a couple of weeks ago, and I think it also affected Spain itself, had major problems from that storm. And we saw what happened in Colorado with those so-called brush fires. My foot, they also had sudden 100 mile per hour winds. So the jet streams wind can dip down and drop down almost to the ground. And so that's one of the things that can produce it. But also it can be sort of nudged in that direction, if you know what I'm saying, in a artificial way. Absolutely. And I want to mention this, if I don't talk about this anymore in any other videos. Also in Colorado, I was watching the newscasts, the recorded reporting live on the scene of the fires, and I noticed right before my eyes these glowing white dots on the ground, and then once the dot stayed there, it started to smoke and glow and flame, and then the dot moved a little bit next to it. The same thing happened. It would stay there, and then there would be smoke, and then there would be flames. And also in the sky, bright little star-like objects with seeming to have a beamed toward the ground, and also these beams coming straight down from the sky, white beams. So again, if you want to learn about this, if you don't know about that, or if you're skeptical, go see Ruger for Life. And he did 3 videos about all of this and how it relates to La Palma. Everything he's doing is concentrating on that. Every video he's been doing, he's done dozens of them. And I'm going to end this, speaking of La Palma. There's been very little talk about it, even with the space weather channels or whatever earthquake channels. But the one channel that I also have recommended and I watch is it's called Emergency Management Associates Ron. That's the exact name of the channel. His name is Ron, and he's an expert in earth changes and volcanoes and weather and space weather, the whole 9 yards. And he's extremely knowledgeable and has been doing this for a very long time, has quite a following. And so this one person who's well known and often comments, most of the times on his live streams, her name is Lisa Spencer. And I really like listening to her or reading her comments, especially because she does talk about La Palma, and there's very few talking about it. And she too seems to be incredibly knowledgeable. I don't know how or why or where she knows these things or gets information or what have you. So I wanted to read what she said in the last live stream earlier today, actually yesterday. It's now Saturday, but on Friday night, she answers, questions or whatever someone has to say. And again, she says quite a lot about La Palma. So let me just read some of the things she says. She said that like Iceland swarming again, and could erupt again. You have to keep watching La Palma because these aren't like the ones we have ever seen before or studied. That's a great point. All these other experts and scientists who claim to have a grasp of things based on whatever, what they see, their data, just like she said, no two situations are the same. It's this type of thing really hasn't been seen from what she's saying. It's a unique, and you can't say just because of other studies or knowledge that necessarily means it applies here. She says that area is super active, guys, and from there to Morocco is active. And again, a larger earthquake is building and could hit between Spain and Italy, and volcano is still steaming and really building. I think she meant La Palma volcano, and La Palma volcano is still steaming and really building. And of course, Morocco is just off the coast of Africa between there and the Canary Islands, not that far away per se. And there's a minor fault line that runs right south, not that far away, right there at the Canary Islands, between the Canary Islands and Africa, Morocco, Sahara, and then a major continental fault line to the north of La Palma and the Canary Islands, hundreds of miles away, but relatively close also. So earthquakes can happen due to crust movement, displacement, fault movement, and it could also happen due to magma movement, all right? So basically all the plates are moving from what I hear in the whole world right now, and La Palma hasn't had a big hit yet. I mean, there's been like a 6 or so, probably a little higher, but the impact, I guess, is also dependent upon the depth. So I guess if it's higher up, more away to the surface, it could really be felt if what I'm saying is accurate, and then deep below, it's not felt as much. I think that's accurate, or it could be the other way around, but I think that is accurate what I said. And also there's been so-called quakes registered, even very large, and oddly enough, it's like hardly anyone seems to have felt them around those areas. So again, what I had said about what can produce earthquakes also, to a specific target, that is absolutely true also. People have been hearing these booms, these loud booms, whether they say it's attributed to meteors, which is possible, or maybe other sources like I'm trying to tell you here in a roundabout way. And she continues by saying, I have shown you guys the seismic map pattern and flow of pressure. Watch Iceland, Italy, Puerto Rico, La Palma, Atlantic Ridge, Cascadia, to Asia and the Aleutian Islands. In La Palma, the lava is still super hot and emitting lots of sulfur, meaning it could just reactivate just like Iceland. There is seismic activity from La Palma to Morocco. They aren't going to report them. Italy to Spain is building for a much larger earthquake, guys. Volcano is really steaming, and it too is building. So yes, absolutely, they don't report a lot of these quakes, or they underreport them or knock them down. So all kinds of shenanigans going on. And if you go listen to Ron on that Emergency Management Associates channel, he gets hot about that, and he hates that. He calls it downright criminal. And there's just earthquakes that aren't even reported, just totally not reported, or they knock it down, to a much lower level. And she said, Iceland volcano is swarming again. Underwater volcanoes are going off, and compensation movement is going to continue to take place in a major way. Compensation, she talks about that a lot because there's been a lot of quakes, because there's been a lot of volcanic eruption and magma. Other things have to fill in, and there's movement of the ground, and there's things going on to compensate for that, um, you know, in different ways. And says Iceland is firing back up and is swarming again, and another imminent eruption is coming there again. Volcano is building, and Italy to Spain is building for a much larger earthquake. It seems quiet, but the seismic activity is still taking place. Compensation movement. That is the most seismic earthquake area on the planet. Watch the Atlantic Ridge in Italy closely. My throat is suddenly flemming up, but I'm done. I'm going to read one more. Just like I said and shown from Iceland, Barbados before they went off, and La Palma, the seismic energy and earth changes and underwater volcanoes going off are going to continue to increase as well. I know this is repetitive a little bit, but she's answering different questions and reinforcing it again and keeps mentioning La Palma. So that's a good source if you want to hear the latest, especially if things start happening. Go listen to his live streams and look for her. Usually she comes along later, not always, but maybe not from the start sometimes. I don't know. I don't see her right at the beginning, but when she's there, she's usually there a good part of the program, or maybe most of it. And again, if you want to hear about what's really going on, she goes into that. Okay. And then Ron did a live stream maybe a month and a half ago, right about after all this volcano has died off, and they declared it, stopped. It's no longer erupting. It's over. I saw it with my own eyes. He did a live stream, and there was a live stream from some channel from Spain or something. I don't even know what it is. I never heard of it before. And he showed it right on the air. There was eruption right at La Palma there that night. And I still am curious whether that was actually there. I have to assume it was, because he knows his stuff, but I can't confirm anything. I can't confirm it. But strangely enough, it just hit overnight like that, and it was pretty fierce. You could see the flames coming up and everything, the whole 9 yards. And this was, I think, after the volcano was declared inactive and no longer erupting. But everything has just been such a mystery. You try to confirm things, at least speaking for myself, and it's almost impossible, whether it's, the date or the time or whatever is not shown. And they run the archives and reruns, and they make you think it's live because they have a live chat going, so they say live. Then they show eruption, and people come there and say, what is going on? Has it started erupting again? No, it hasn't. They're just fakers, fake out. They get a lot of ad revenue and what have you from doing that. And it's a cash cow for them to use the volcano in that way. It's despicable, but that's what's going on. Again, there's no live streams coming from La Palma. I'll just say it flat out. Again, maybe they'll show a little bit of footage, but it gets repeated all through the broadcast. And it may be live, or it might be what happened during the day or the day before. And the camera filters and settings, they mess around with everything. They mess around with people's heads about what's really happening or not. So really, I'm not going by anything anymore, anything I see. And the other site that it's possible that they might be showing footage, whether it's live or not, I don't know, is Algo Especial Vida. I think that's the channel. I think that's where I got that footage where I was going to show, but I'm not showing it anymore. Though then I went back and thought, well, maybe it was from La Palma TV, one or the other. But I mean, I just saw trying to figure out from La Palma TV earlier today whether I don't think it was live. It was probably recorded from the day, but I think they also had recording from many weeks ago when there was a lot of smoke, because it kept changing back and forth, and they changed to some other thing, some other news, and it keeps switching and flipping, and they keep repeating the same, looping the same footage. And even though it may only be for an hour or sometimes 2 hours or 3 hours, and some of the second other channel I just mentioned, even 12 hours, but I don't know what the heck it is, but they show no timestamps, no day, no nothing. And again, you see the filters, the settings of the camera changing suddenly. So whatever they want to do, they do, to make it look like however they want it to be. And so before I go, I just refreshed those sites to see if there was any update going on. No, there's no update. The seismic amplitude chart is the same, and it's like almost noontime there over in La Palma, and half the day has gone by and they haven't even updated that. So I'm curious to see if any developments happen with that, or any quakes. And again, the other seismogram, which shows continuous ticker type movement or graph that moves according to the waves it detects of microquakes or micro tremors, or just waves deep below, very subtle waves. That hasn't changed, but it actually, it does look like it's picking up a little bit more, very, very gradually. It seems to be darkening in and showing more signs of activity. It's been very gradual and very steady. And again, it's not at a real high level, though it's at a level indicating activity. And neither is it very, very low. So I would think that if it's steady, if it's continuous, it's been going on and gradually, slowly increasing, that what is it showing? It's showing that there's activity and it's continuing. It's not stopping. It's just getting a bit by bit stronger and stronger, and it's continuous, flowing, and it just keeps going. And hasn't stopped, and it's been going for like this for a long time now, many days. And I also have many blatant photos of that SUN and SIMU and then LATORS. Absolutely, I have so much footage, it's ridiculous. And it's so obvious, it's ridiculous. And it's clear as day. And once more, if you want to learn about that, Ruger for Life, he goes into all that. He really describes it, the technology, the patents. I think he goes into what purposes they could be used for. The James Webb satellite, if that's what it is, that they just recently launched, talks about the rods of God, those type of things, all those kind of things. But again, specifically, everything he's going into points to La Palma, everything he's talking about. He gets so outraged that, he doesn't bother covering his strong language, because he thinks it's so horrifying, these things, what these plans are by wicked people. But God is going to put an end to this. Right at the exact time right now, His grace and mercy holds the world together. But that's not going to be for very, very much longer. There's coming a day when, the piper has to be paid. And these have to account for the evil that they've done. And there's a hell, and there's an eternal hell. And I hope it's, they're going to think it's worth it. I don't think so. All those homes and places in Colorado, and also that happened in California, other places in the world, Australia, and there's many more places that this kind of tech has been used. against man, where certain structures are disintegrate into ash, into total ash with nothing left. And there could also be another structure very, very close next to it without a scratch, or a whole area where one after another is just reduced to powder, totally powder, and then right around that nothing has been touched. Or one structure or one thing has been happened to, and then everything around it nothing, like nothing is going on, like there was no fire. Or like people in cars, horrifyingly, this has happened, and they and their cars were reduced to nothing, that didn't exist anymore, just ash and dust on the ground. While other structures or the land or vehicles right next to that, there was nothing, no indication of any fire. All right, so prophetically, believers are waiting for Jesus to come and take us out of here at the rapture, what's called the rapture. Repair, however you pronounce it. Harpazo, translation, catching away, rapturo. It's just another name for Jesus appearing, and it's the resurrection. That's what it is. The rapture is just another name for the resurrection, the raising of the dead, but just that those who are alive when Jesus comes to resurrect the believers who died, believed in him, who are saved by him, by his grace and mercy alone. The ones who are alive, that's us. If he comes for us, which seems any minute here, we'll be taken alive, not have to face death. And that's what the Apostle Paul clearly said. And Jesus himself said it, that life would be going on. Whatever someone was doing, some will be taken, the believers will be taken. The others will be left, and then will be judgment and tribulation and very, very destructive and bad and horrible things happening on the earth. And this is the birth pangs or birth signs, and we're like right there. We're right there, right at near the start of it, right near the rapture taking place, because it seems ready. The tribulation, this time of judgment, seems like right on the verge. So all you have to do is go to Jesus and be saved. That's all you have to do. Open your heart. Accept him. Accept the truth of the gospel, of what he came to do in your place, paying for your sin, to secure eternal life forever in heaven. And there's a hell also, and that's what you're saved from if you do that. If Christ is in you, his Spirit is in you, and you become what the Bible says, a new creation, or just means you're born anew, like a baby being born, but spiritually, afresh, anew, a new nature, forgiven, Christ in you, have your sins totally washed. He gives you a new spiritual nature, is what happens. It's not anything you do or can do. He just gives it. He gives himself. He gave himself, and offers it to you this moment. And all you have to do is accept it. Accept him. Just like someone knocks on your door and you open the door and invite them in, and you invite Jesus into you, and he becomes, you have a new life in him. You're inwardly changed, and you're reconciled toward God, and you're able to know God, like a child does to a parent. And he'll never leave you, never forsake you, never condemn you after that. You're no longer condemned forever. Any sins that you ever committed, and the future also, they've all been paid for once and for all. So the rest is up to you. Just go to him. Go to Jesus. He's waiting. He's waiting to save you. He's waiting to show himself real to you, that God is real and that they exist and he's alive and he rose from the dead. He's not in the grave. He's in heaven, awaiting the moment to come and appear in the clouds in the sky to take believers. As as unusual, put it mildly, that may sound to someone listening to this. So if you've heard the term lightning strikes, well, that's the kind of thing it is. You may be skeptical and doubt, but all you have to do is ask, and he'll show you that he's real, and he'll affirm to you, and you'll have the assurance of your salvation, and he'll be there with you and in you by his Spirit, and you'll know that. There's no one that could tell you that. I mean, to make it real to you but yourself. All you have to do is accept it. Accept him. All right? Accept him. Accept Jesus. You'll have an inner transformation and an inner change that you'll notice. A good change, a good way. Healthy way, spiritually. Okay, that's it for now. If anyone has lasted this long, I know this was a long video. Don't know how many more there are left for me here, but I get a strong sense that things could be happening here now. Really strong sense. Maybe with La Palma, but if we're not here to see that, then we're not. Then Jesus is going to come. Whether, whatever happens with La Palma, we see anything further. And like I said, even if something happened, I believe Jesus would take us out of here immediately and rescue and protect his people, his children. So I'll keep an eye on things, and I want to see what's going to happen myself. I do get a sense that things are going to be starting up again here, maybe with the volcano, but especially that the rapture is right here upon us. That I do feel very confident about and very upbeat. So hopefully the church won't be here many more of these evil days with all the crazy things going on. If I'm back, I'm back. If not, well, I'll see you if and when Jesus returns, or if there's further developments going on with the volcano. I'm going to keep watching, and so keep watching for Jesus. Okay. I'll talk to you somewhere, someplace, somehow. Bye.